Hey everybody, this is Jack Baldwin with Baldwin Architectural Group. We are very excited to be here with you on April 9th for our next installment in the Ask an Architect series. Today we're going to be covering the building project process during our quarantine time. So there's a lot of concerns over how projects are still being completed, what kind of progress can still be made. We've done some research that we want to share with you guys. So we are glad to have you tuning in with your questions, and we do want to hear from you. So please use the chat box to participate. So today I've got James Knight. He's hey James. He's going to be answering some questions with us on video chat. He's one of our architects, architectural designers on staff. We've also got Christopher Baldwin, one of our architects, and Richard Bodricks, who's also one of our architectural designers. So the three of them, between the three of those guys, we're going to ask them some questions and get their feedback on some of the research they've done. They spent some time this week getting to know the landscape that's been changing, the different codes, the different requirements that are going on. So we're glad to have them all here, and we're ready to get started. James, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Jack. We just got off a nice conference call going over all this information. So it's it's a lot to take in. I'm sure there's a lot of questions out there from different clients for sure.
Yeah, that's good. It's fresh on your mind today. So
Yes.
good. Well, I'm going to just switch over to video so we can just concentrate on us chatting. But we'll jump right in. So the topic is again, how are we keeping projects going in the midst of the changing landscape that we've experienced lately? So one of the first questions I had to start off with is the American Council of Engineering Companies here in Georgia, which is also known as the ACEC. What are they currently doing to help keep the building process going? So James, I'll ask you that first, and we'll kind of do a round robin.
Alrighty, sure. Well, at the moment, I mean, this all came about obviously because of COVID and an executive order that allows more of an extensive kind of overall, how do I put it, kind of approach, letting a lot more private firms start to review plans now. So their role here is to kind of teach a lot more of the community of what's involved in this process, and they kind of take the role of cities and counties now that a lot of these cities aren't able to come out the site. And this is part of the conference call that we were just a part of. They were going over a lot of the legal sort of ramifications for us as an architectural firm and what we can do in this situation. So they're very involved in this process now that everything's happened the way it has.
So what you're saying is the ACEC has been responsible for helping to loosen some of, I don't know if you call them restrictions, but allowing private firms to to play a more active role in the review process than relying simply on city and state or county government entities to do the reviews. Is that kind of what you've...
Exactly. They're just trying to fill the gaps that have opened up at the moment. And, they kind of made it clear to us that this may just be a temporary thing that happens. Of course, private reviews of buildings has been, a thing for a while now, but this is it's more extensive now that we're dealing with a state of emergency.
Right. So easing those restrictions is good. So what would the message be to anybody who's looking at a project that is under review? What would you tell them if they're looking at a project through that lens? Like, how quickly can I get my review, or who can I call upon to get my review process started?
Well, I would say any clients that are looking, that are working with us currently, are looking to work with us, I think it should be part of our responsibility to reach out to other architectural firms, other engineering firms, make sure that we have the right context for them. Mm-hmm. We can't obviously review our own drawings, so it's a big part of finding who in our local communities and the different cities and the different counties. It's important for us to find the right resources that we can move these projects ahead. But they're definitely not stopping. these projects are still going ahead, and we all pivot as a community to make sure that we can continue all this design and construction.
Great. So you guys just came off with that call, James. You said there was some legal jargon. There was some, maybe some conversation around those topics. So what did you learn about code requirements or laws or any recent changes to codes or laws that would benefit us during this time?
Well, as a person, like a private company, now that we had the the state of emergency, we had the executive order that allows us to do this. So in a lot of ways, it teaches us a new role. So we can start reviewing other people's plans, and we'll get a better holistic view of what we can do for our clients through this whole process. I think that's kind of important. It also expands our network because we're going to have to reach out to other architectural firms that are reviewing, other engineering firms. It's important to know that it's going to take a huge team effort here to review different projects now, because it can't just be one reviewer reviewing the whole projects. It's going to have to be an architect will review the architectural work, an engineer will come in for the different elements of engineering. You may even have surveyors coming in for their part of it and making sure that we're all doing a stand-up job.
Yeah. So it sounds like this could be a way for us to build some good community, some good networking, like you said, around those efforts, that we all kind of need to take a bigger picture approach toward getting plans reviewed in a timely way.
Yeah, for sure.
So anything else on the code front? Anything else? Any other changes to laws or codes that might be beneficial?
Not so much. Sorry, go ahead, Christopher.
I was going to say, it's not really changing the codes. That's all it's doing is changing the review process and the inspections during construction. Those are the two items that are coming up in this all. It's the same liability insurance that we still have to carry already. If you go to a $5 million and above project, that's where you have to increase the liability insurance.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you do have to consider that it is a few different things. The base codes that we'll be using are just the general state minimum codes, which is the Georgia code, obviously, in this state. But then you also have the different cities and the different counties and what codes they're using. And then you have to also consider the amendments in those codes. So there's a few different things. So we will have to look into the different places,
Well, typically it's international building code, residential, international building code, commercial.
Yeah, we just have to double check these things as we move forward.
Right. And what have you guys seen as far as the timelines on getting approval, the approval process, James? How is that going to be affected, and what can we do? How can we be a resource to keep project timelines as low as possible? So that's kind of a two-part question. What do you see affecting the timelines, and what can we do to make those go as quickly as possible?
I think there's quite a few variables involved in this. It's obviously we have to reach out to different architects and engineers and see their open timelines of when they can actually review this work. So that is one variable that may take time, because this is a whole lot of new work that none of us have had to really deal with before. There are going to be some firms that are already set up to do this, but a lot of us are just coming on board now and learning this process. So there may be a little bit of lead time there, finding the appropriate person and fitting into their timeline. But once they do review it and they give us the okay on our projects, or we give them the okay on their projects, once it's submitted, it takes roughly 2 business days with the city or the county before they either give it the green light or the red light. And if they say no to it, they may come back with notes, which will come back to the reviewer, which will then in turn come back to us to review those drawings again. So the process isn't too different from what it was. It's just involving, almost another step with a private firm instead of going straight to a code reviewer.
Okay. So the biggest thing that's happened, obviously, is we cannot go into public. We can't walk into public spaces. We can't shake hands. We're limited to our interactions with people. So that's obviously the biggest effect. So with that being said, we're under quarantine. We're told to limit our exposure. What have we encountered so far? Are offices closed, or are they still taking submissions online as far as approval entities, whether it be city, county, et cetera? How
I
are
think,
we still
Christopher,
able to interact?
Yes, everybody is basically doing it online right now.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
Well, you have to go to the submittal portal on the different entities, and that's where you put in your plan review request.
Right. So our message to anybody who is asking themselves, is my project going to be able to be submitted for approval? They can still do that online. Have we identified some good resources that might be helpful for people?
We could put some on the website as a possibility. It's going to be different by entity, of course.
Right. So what have you guys seen as far as the interactions with either city or county governments during the approval process? Have they been good about responding? Have we seen longer wait times in response? What has it been like from our perspective?
I was going to say the only one I've had this past week was through a retail review that was happening in the city of Atlanta, and he was very responsive, so I felt good about it. I mean, he always has his comments, of course, but it went well.
Good. So one of the takeaways we've seen about a month into this, it has been that there are some more resources available online. Submission can still happen online. We have still gotten responsiveness from civic approvers, people who we do need their signatures on or their reviews on. We are able to get that. James, what about site plans or site visits, I should say? How are those going?
It just depends on a project by project basis. Ultimately, it is trying to best adhere to social distancing during the site plans, and just connecting with the different clients and making sure they're okay with it, or if we're going to postpone it. There are some circumstances where any of us may go out there by ourselves and just go review the site and do what we have to do. A lot of the times externally, it's a lot of it's based around communication, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was kind of a leading question, mostly to say, site visits are a crucial part of our process. Almost every project that we take on requires a site visit. And just to allay any fears or concerns, yes, we can still do site visits. We can still manage getting on site, getting the information we need, and managing and respecting social distancing. So from what we've been experiencing, there's not a lot of that can affect our ability to keep a project moving forward. What are some other ways we've found? This is a little bit of an open-ended question for maybe Rich. You can answer this one. What are some ways you've found to collaborate with clients and keep projects moving forward while we've maintained some distance lately?
I would say the best way to collaborate with the clients is utilizing Zoom.
Yeah.
Which is essentially a meeting platform that we can all connect with. Same tool we're using right now.
Right.
Correct.
I feel like that would be the best way I can be able to share my screen with the client and walk through where we at with the project, giving detailed information, always keeping them informed, even though we're social distancing each other.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're, we've got third-party contractors, engineers, other people involved. Rich, have you seen it easier or just as easy to collaborate with our third parties and our clients together and still get work done?
I would say it's just as easy.
Yeah.
No matter who the person is, whether it's the client, the engineer, or anybody who's involved in the project, I feel like it's easy for us to come to a central hub and share information with each other that way.
Yeah.
I'd actually say it's a little bit easier in some ways. Well, we don't
Yeah,
have
I
to
would
drive
agree
as
with that.
much.
Right. And so the message there to anybody listening is, if you're wondering how can my project move forward, One, we've rolled out some good collaboration tools. One that we're using today, like Rich said, we can share screens, so we can still annotate documents within Zoom, meaning we can add notes to a floor plan or an elevation that we're working on together. We can highlight areas that need attention. We can still do that virtually through our web tools. We've been able to take good notes. So our internal team, kind of on the back end, customer doesn't necessarily see this, but all 5 of us are working remote on our team. And, we haven't been in the office in a month together to collaborate in person. And yet we've used some very sophisticated tools that we rolled out this past year to keep our internal communication at its best. One of those is Slack. Another one is a program called Monday.com, which is a beefed up project management software that we use, and Zoom. So those 3 tools together, and with our customers, we've been able to keep collaboration happening. And we're still learning. There's still ways, obviously we had an episode a week ago in which one of our collaboration tools was misused. But fortunately, Zoom rolled out some security features that we're taking advantage of today that have allowed us to make sure that collaboration doesn't get interfered with. So yeah, we're still learning how to use our tools and still learning how to take advantage of them the best way that we can. But it's been a process, and to your point that you guys have all said, there's been a lot of ways in which it's been a lot easier for us to collaborate since we're not having to spend time in the car, and you can very quickly get on a call. What are some other success stories? So all 3 of you, whether it's James, Rich, or Christopher, what are some other success stories that you've noticed in the past month of us being able to get projects completed in a very timely way without having to interact face to face?
Well, I'd say I've had quite a few successful Zoom meetings. It's been a great tool to keep us on topic.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, we've moved forward very quickly with design. We're able to turn it around very quickly, and it's quite easy to set up a new meeting as we need it. So in a lot of ways, it's proven to be an easier way for the clients to jump on a phone call with us and even share their, if they do sketches, which in a lot of cases clients do their own sketches. Even if they're holding it up to the screen, it's a very easy and fast way to communicate ideas, I think. So for me personally, I think that's been a very good win on my end. It's just the ease of being, I don't have to drive across town at this time, and we can still share ideas.
Right. Yeah, I think, you and I had some success this week moving a project forward that was starting to stall. We got our client on the phone on a Zoom call. We were able to share screens and go through the floor plans together, make some notes, annotate it right there on the screen while we were working on it. She had some images and some videos she wanted to share. So we set up a shared file folder with her that we made public to her by invite only. And she was able to securely upload her documents from, I think it was Snapchat or a third-party app that she was using. But that was great because typically, obviously we can't sit down and hold the phone up and show you, hey, here's what I'm looking at. We're able to use OneDrive and Zoom to accomplish a lot.
Technology is, it's becoming part of every project now, for sure. Yeah. And everyone's adapting to it really well.
Yeah. What else have you guys learned? Maybe from, like you said, you were just on a call recently with some updates. I think this was ACEC that it was addressing. So James, what other good tidbits and helpful hints did you pick up from that call that you'd like to share with us?
Let's see now. I got a couple of notes in front of me. I think we covered most of the main points here. Christopher, do you have anything you want to add?
What about liabilities for engineers and architects? Was there any? We touched on that for a moment, but were there any changes to the liabilities?
Well, we already carry a liability insurance that's required by the state to be licensed. So it's always the amount that you want to carry, because if you go into much bigger projects, it's the $1 million and down that you can do with our current insurance. We could go to the higher one. Just means paying a little bit more for that.
Right.
I would say there are a few things that is spelled out that we cannot do, though, which is important to note because certain clients or certain engineers may ask for it. It's important to note that we can't be part of the project in any sort of way, whether that's financially or designing it ourselves. If we have any sort of partnership with the engineer, that creates a liability that we can't be involved in.
It's an independence.
Yeah, exactly. So it has to be someone outside. And we cannot issue COs, certificate of occupancies. That is still part of the city and the county's reviewing process.
Okay.
That's important to know as well.
So we cannot, so even though we can do a lot more on the review process than we could before, we are not in a position to offer certificates of occupancy.
Exactly. It still comes, the end of the process still ends with the city or the county. It does not end with us. We just review it and submit it to them with their approval or not.
It's very interesting that years ago we actually did have like structural engineers go out and provide a letter to do almost the identical thing.
Yeah.
And the reason for that was that engineer took that liability. That's what he was writing basically. Is I looked at it, I approved it through this letter. And so if anything happened on that building, that's on that engineer that stamped that letter.
Right.
So it's the same thing. It's just a more generic kind of thing where we're getting it all across the state now.
Yeah. One other question I had as I was listening to you guys discuss, what about fire marshals? We didn't really talk a whole lot about that.
They still have to do their part. So
right.
We're not taking that liability.
Right. So for them to do their part, have you guys seen any slowdown in or anything that's affecting the ability for a fire marshal to come out on site or to review plans to give approval?
We haven't done any plan reviews for that currently in the last few weeks, so not sure if that's going to be slowing down or not, but it still has to go through their fire marshal approval step.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I bet they're still doing the same thing like we're doing. They're working remotely too.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so I guess the question was, is that greatly affected by them having to be on site or not? If they are working remote, are they still able to keep some things business as usual so that we can get approval on projects and keep them moving forward?
We can verify that, but I think it's still the same kind of process that was going on before.
Great.
Because you're not having that general crowded people around a plan review with our site visit.
Right. Well, so as we start to wrap up, Rich, was there anything else you observed from the call today that you'd like to share, or a helpful hint even that you'd like to share that you've observed in the past month that would be beneficial to let people know how we're continuing to get projects done?
For one, I would say the communication with city officials has been, you would think that would slow down in this situation, but we're still able to have that dialogue. So any questions we have about a particular project, they're still able to answer those questions.
Right.
And we're able to get, the information that's needed in whatever situation it occurs at that moment.
Yeah. That's helpful to know, Rich. Thanks for sharing, because we do want people to know that, yes, just because we're not able to meet in person or go down to the office, we still want responsiveness. And what we've experienced is good responsiveness from the people that we need to interact with to keep projects moving ahead. So yes, it's still challenging. We're not saying this hasn't been a challenge for us and for our clients. And some people have been hesitant to move forward. But we've noticed that there are ways that we can still chart a path forward. There's also new financing options that are available to small businesses. So we do hope that our clients, we know that banks and lenders have been flooded with requests lately, but there are still opportunities to get funding for projects in the midst of all of this. So that's another thing we would want to add, is that if you are in a position where funding is something that you need in order to keep a project going, there have been some really cool advancements that way too. So we might do a webinar. We may plug you into a good resource for financial conversations. We know some good people that can answer those questions more from a banking or financial perspective, but we want people to feel encouraged in spite of the difficulties that are going on, that we as a company are committed to moving your projects forward. We're committed to finding new ways to use technology to collaborate. We're committed to communicating well with each other and with you. So we do appreciate the people who have taken us up on that offer to stay engaged and to keep projects moving in the right direction. That's been exciting to see. Anything else that anybody would like to add, that maybe some final thoughts on the topic of how projects are still moving forward during these times? Just any thoughts? Okay, what I'd like to switch over to is just to kind of wrap up. And again, thank you for everybody who attended. Next week on April 17th, so we do have Easter weekend coming up, so that's why we're doing a Thursday today instead of our typical Friday. But next week we'll be back on our Friday schedule, and Melissa Banco will be our guest. We'll be doing a Q&A with her. We'll be talking about their company, but also more particularly about the partnership that we hope to have and will continue to have with Banco Designs and other interior design companies. But particularly, we wanted to talk with Melissa Banco, since she's launched a very successful interior design business that specializes in senior living, multi-use, and hospitality facilities. So we're going to be asking her some questions, what she's been experiencing the past month. Her team will be joining us, so we're really excited to have her on the call as our special guest. So that's going to be April 17th, next Friday. We plan on doing the same time, 3 p.m., so I hope you guys will join us. James, thank you for joining us via video and answering our questions. Christopher,
you're welcome.
Yeah, and thank you guys both, Christopher and Rich, for being prepared today to answer our questions and share your insights. We appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Well, guys, we'll see everybody next Friday on our next Ask an Architect with our guest, Melissa Banco, and we sure did enjoy it. Hope everybody got their questions answered today, and thank you so much.